You look at successful Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. What makes them successful is not the industry. What makes them successful is actually not the owner. What makes them successful is their ability.
Welcome to Success Unleashed, Beyond the Job Site, the only podcast created to help contractors win in business and in life. And now your host, Garrett Bake.
Beautiful, amazing children. And I know every father says that, but truly I have been blessed. I've got 2 boys and 1 girl. So we've got them both and they've been nothing short of amazing. Well, when kids are growing up, they're, let's just say, a little bit of a challenge sometimes, right? There's times when they want to cuddle and they tell you they love you and they make little, pictures and signs for you and cook with you and, all that fun stuff. And then there's times where you're like, why did I have kids, right? Well, over the years, my wife and I have remodeled a few different homes. Most of them have been investments that we've made ourselves, self-funded. And so there was a lot of sweat equity or labor that went into that. Well, guess what? When you got kids, you bring them along for the ride. And in one particular house, we literally gutted it. We moved interior walls, changed window configurations, sliders, moved the kitchen from the middle of the house to an end, moved the washer and dryer from one side to the other. I mean, it was a pretty legit project. And this was, I think, probably a 14-month project. It was one of the first ones that we did. And it was a live-in flip. It was a journey and a learning experience. But inside of that, of course, we had the kids, right? And so there's different projects that happen, right? Initially, it's the demo work. And the demo work with kids is totally fun. Here's a hammer, here's a heavy object, whatever, hit that wall, right? Knock that thing out, break that thing. And they're just having a great time doing that, right? They love it. It's organized chaos for them. But then you get into the more technical stuff, laying tile, right? Putting drywall up, texturing, painting, putting cabinets and things like that. Well, those are not very good jobs to have your kids do, unless they're a little older and, of course, have experience in it. Well, in this particular house, we were going with a Spanish-style color scheme and layout. And so there were some deep wood accents and colors and things, but then there was also some bright colors like yellow. And I know yellow nowadays, you're like, ew, yellow? Seriously? Well, back then it was cool, all right? So get off it. We're painting the walls yellow. And so I had the kids, my oldest, that wanted to help. Jaden's his name. And he's 22 now, right? And so Jaden's my oldest, and I had him help, right? And so I had the paint can, and I was, rolling and putting it on the walls and just going to town. And he really wanted to help. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I got him a paintbrush, and I told him to go to, this other side of the wall and paint there. And I said, okay, not the baseboards, not the floor, just the wall. Get it? Yeah, got it, Dad. I'm like, awesome. Go for it. And so I continued to paint on my side, and he's off painting on his other side. Well, about 15, 20 minutes later, he's like, Dad, I'm done. I'm like, awesome. And so I go over to see what he's done. Well, he'd done a masterpiece, at least according to him and in his eyes. In my eyes, it was a train wreck. It was a disaster. There was a trail, and it was a pretty big trail, of paint from the can to the wall. There was also a trail of his shoe prints from the paint can to the wall and then over to me. There was also part of the baseboards that were painted, and oddly enough, part of the window that was also painted. So I, of course, was a little frustrated at the moment, laugh at it now, but frustrated at the moment, right? And I'm like, son of a gun, why did I have him do this? Now I have to go back and I have to clean up this mess, and then I have to redo this and, right? I started adding to all these things that are going to cost me extra time, extra money, extra attention, along with the extra stress, extra frustration, so on and so forth. Well, we got it all cleaned up, and, it was my bad because I didn't really, give him the right instructions, if you will, on the details of what he should be paying attention to. But we made it through, right? And eventually we got the house done. It was an amazing house. We lived in it for years. When we sold it, we did very well, right? Great experience. And it was a great experience for him at that time, learning the aspects of flipping a house, right? Well, why am I telling you a story about my kids? Do I love my kids? Yes. Do I want you to love my kids? Oh, sure, of course. Why not? But I'm telling you this story because I want you to think about my kids in a different light. I want you to think about my kids like your employees. Why would I tell you that? Let me ask you a question. How often do you find yourself behaving like me? You find yourself telling an employee to go do something only to have you or someone else in your company have to go back and redo it, fix it, do it right in the first place, clean up a mess, insert the thing. I work with hundreds of contractors, and on a weekly basis, there is a complaint, we'll say, about employees. There always is a complaint about employees. I got off the phone with an employee earlier, a contractor earlier today. You know what their complaint was? My employees got drunk on Sunday night, didn't show up for work on Monday. Roofing company. So what did that do to their schedule? They had to rearrange their entire schedule because they had 2 jobs to finish on Monday, right? Another employee story. An electrician hires a gentleman that has 15 years of sales experience, hires him to be his salesman. He's already doing about $2.5 million a year. We paint out this plan for $10 million. He's like, man, this is going to be amazing. 90 days later, fires the guy because the guy never sold anything in 90 days. Gutter company, example number 3, gutter company. He's doing really well. He already has a good crew. He has 2 salespeople. Things are humming along. He's like, my crew's overwhelmed. I need to hire another crew. Hires another crew. In 3 weeks, he finds that his primary crew, that's really good at doing what they're doing, keeps having to go back and redo the work that crew number 2 supposedly had done. Right? Again, how often are your employees acting like my 10-year-old son? Now, here's the crazy part, right? The crazy part is that as a business owner, you want to treat your employees with respect. You want to give them opportunity, right? You want to give them autonomy. You want to give them the chance to create something for themselves. The problem is that most employees, regardless of what they tell you to your face, need to be told what to do, need to be told how to do it, and need to be educated. You want to fight me on it? Let's go. I'm ready for it. I was an employee for almost 20 years, right? I worked as a police officer. Take away the badge and the gun, I'm an employee. And guess what? Yes, high risk environment, but whatever. Guess what? I was told what to do, how to do it, and held accountable. At the end of every shift, we had to fill out an end of shift report. What were the calls that we took? What was the outcome? Were there any arrests? So on and so forth, right? And that would go to the supervisor. Then the supervisor would take that information and send it up the chain. Then at the end of the month, we would look at the numbers. Okay, what's the average? Okay, why is Garrett not performing at the same average as everyone else? Let's go explore that. Is it a training issue? Is it an attitude issue? Is it like a competence issue? What is the issue? Fix the issue and then move on, right? You look at successful Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. What makes them successful is not the industry. What makes them successful is actually not the owner. What makes them successful is their ability to attract, train, and retain the right talent. Now, I don't want to get into your hiring process right now. That's a different conversation. I want to get into your mindset around people and understand how important people are to your growth. If you haven't already, you will get to a point where you feel overwhelmed. You're wearing the marketing hat, and you're wearing the sales hat, and you're wearing the fulfillment hat, and you're wearing the paperwork hat, and you're wearing the finance hat. And you got all these hats, and you're just switching them off depending on what time of the day or what day of the week. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It gets overwhelming. So you're like, well, I'm just going to hire somebody then. And so you ask your cousin Bobby, hey, Bobby, you want to come work with me? He says, sure. Well, your first clue should have been that Bobby's unemployed, probably for a reason. So now you feel like you got company. That's great. You have somebody to talk to. Problem is, Bobby doesn't know what he's doing. He's acting like my 10-year-old son. And so you find yourself more overwhelmed because now you're spending the time that you should have been spending growing the business, fixing the stuff that should have been done right the first time. A lot of you nodding your head right now, which you should be. Some of you are shaking your head. which you also should be. But the point I want to make is this. You need to understand your role as a business owner. When it comes to employees, your role is not to make them feel warm and fuzzy every day. Come on, Johnny, you can do it. That's great. You're not in third grade. You're dealing with grown-ups. By the way, if you have to hire Gen Z or Gen Alpha or whatever, I feel for you. I really do. But the point is, they came to work for you. They agreed that they were going to perform and you were going to compensate them. That's the agreement, right? So your job is to hold them accountable. But what are you going to hold them accountable to? If they don't know what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, you can't hold them accountable. Going back to my son, how could I get mad at my son if I didn't tell him what to do and how to do it? That's not his fault. That's mine. I'll give you another example. Cabinet company, right? Cabinet install company. So this woman, great woman, she's got a 7-figure business. She's been doing a lot of it on her own, right? So she hires a designer, or I should say a person to be a designer. The problem is that this designer doesn't know how to design yet. And she's too busy to do all this stuff. And so I said, cool, what do you want the designer to do? She's like, design. I'm like, is that it? And we spend the next 10 minutes creating this list, 5 to 7 things that she needs the designer to do. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's prioritize this list. What's the most important? This thing. Okay. What are the steps involved in that thing? And we break down all the steps. I said, okay, so this next week, how many of these steps are we going to get through? 3. Awesome. So your job this next week is to take this one employee, this designer, show them these 3 steps and make sure that they're competent. Period. Don't give them the 5 things. Don't give them passwords. Don't give them the company credit card. Don't tell them to go out and measure. Nothing, because they don't know how to do that. Right? Why do I tell you that? Some of you guys want to hand over the keys to the business and expect that these guys are going to know what to do, even if they do come with 10, 15, 20 years experience. You have a particular way of doing business, and you know that way because it's your business. These people don't. Your employees don't. So again, treat your employees the way they expect to be treated. I'm not saying to disrespect them. I'm not saying to treat them like crap. That's not what this is about. But they expect certain things. They expect to be told what to do, how to do it, and to be held accountable. And if they don't agree to those 3 things, they're not your employees. Get rid of them, right? If right now you're struggling with your employees, you have to ask yourself those 3 questions. Number 1, do they know what I expect out of them? Number 2, do they know how I expect them to do it? Number 3, how am I holding them accountable? I'll give you another example. Sales guys. This is the easiest with sales guys, right? You're too busy to do all the estimates, bids, proposals, whatever by yourself. And so you hire a sales guy. Cool. What do you expect that sales guy to do? Your obvious answer is, well, sell. Well, congratulations. You have a job description, maybe, title, maybe not much. What you expect them to do is increase the revenue that's coming into the business. Okay, how? Are they inbound leads? Are they outbound leads? It's a combination of the 2. If it is outbound, are they door knocking? Are they going to networking meetings? Are they building relationships with builders or developers or other trade business owners? Like, what does that need to look like? Okay. How do you expect them to do it? And how many? You should have a very detailed list of what it is that you want the salesperson to do. Why? Because then, 1, you can make sure that you're training them to do all those things. 2, you can make sure that they're understanding on how to do it. But number 3, you can hold them accountable. Quit playing games, right? Quit pretending that you can turn around and they're going to do the work that they're supposed to do. No, you have to hold them accountable. But the key to accountability is that it starts with you. You have to be willing to hold yourself accountable. Hold yourself accountable to train your people the way they need to be trained. Hold yourself accountable to be willing to have those hard conversations with your people the way that they need to be had. Because at the end of the day, success or failure has little to do with them and everything to do with you. All right, you know what time it is. It's time to get after it. 3, 2, 1, off you go.
Thanks for listening to the Success Unleashed podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by liking, subscribing, and leaving us a review. Until we see you again, it's time to get after it. 3, 2, 1, off you go.